All right. Mahalo everyone who's attended any part of this conference. It's been a pretty major undertaking for a small department that has no experience doing this. It's funny, Brahim, a few weeks ago, we were having this discussion with somebody else who said, when was the last time Ethnic Studies had a conference? And Brahim says, 10 years ago, 1995. I was like, no. Some spiraling oceanic time there. But we really wanted to end on the note of bringing together all of our special guests who joined us. And just to have some final closing thoughts and mana'o from them, as they're the ones who've traveled to join us, especially for the conference. And if you missed any part of it now, I'm going to read off their bios, and I'll probably take a long time because I'm trying to find them all at once. But immediately to my right is Cindy Domingo, who's currently the chair of LILO's board of directors. She has been a longtime human rights activist focusing on the issues of women, workers' rights, and international solidarity. And she gave a really great talk for us on Wednesday evening at our Aqua Malkorath Fund for Social Change dinner, really setting the mood and talking about connections and organizing in Seattle. And next to her is Professor Damon Salesa, who is
cool.
Is not in alphabetical order in our program, evidently. Associate Professor and University Director of Pacific Strategy and Engagement at the University of Auckland, where he is also head of Pacific Studies and co-head of Te Wānanga o Waipapa School of Maori Studies and Pacific Studies. He is a historian of the Pacific, especially Central Polynesia, and of empire and colonialism, and was featured in our second panel yesterday. Next to him is Vince Diaz, who is a Pohnpeian and Filipino from Guam and is Associate Professor of American Indian Studies and Anthropology at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. Interdisciplinary historian, cultural critic, and student of traditional seafaring in the Micronesian islands, and was on the first panel yesterday. And next to him is Christine Taitano Delisle, or Tina Delisle, who is a historian who specializes in Guam and Micronesia in the context of the U.S. Empire and the Pacific. She's an assistant professor at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign and holds a joint appointment with American Indian Studies Program, Gender and Women's Studies and History, and was on our Divining Bodies panel earlier this afternoon. Following her is Professor Natasha Sharma, who is the Charles Deering McCormick Professor of Teaching Excellence and Associate Professor of African American Studies and Asian American Studies at Northwestern University. She is currently writing an ethnography about blacks in Hawaii and was featured on the same panel as Damon yesterday that was looking at indigenizing, what was it called? Indigenizing race? Race and indigeneity? Something like that? Yeah. I'm on fumes. Okay, and following her is Professor Keith Camacho, who is the author of Cultures of Commemoration, The Politics of War, Memory, and History in the Mariana Islands. He is an associate professor in the Department of Asian American Studies at the University of California, Los Angeles, where he is also editor of Amerasia Journal, published by the UCLA Asian American Studies Center. Next is Professor Dean Saranilio. Dean Itsuji Saranilio is a proud alum of Ethnic Studies at UH Mānoa and assistant professor of Asian Pacific American Studies in the Department of Social and Cultural Analysis at New York University. His work has been published in the American Quarterly, Journal of Asian American Studies, and his book manuscript is titled The Theatricality of the Settler State, Hawaii Statehood and the Liberal Politics of Empire Building, and was just speaking earlier, and Keith also gave our other Aquan Malkorath talk last night at the Center for Hawaiian Studies. And finally, we have Professor Kaleko Akaeo, Associate Professor of Hawaiian at UH Maui College, prominent Hawaiian nationalist and advocate for the decolonization and independence of Hawaii. First of all, please join me in giving all of them a round of applause for being here with us and coming back for the last panel. So, according to the program, it says that this roundtable is expanding islands. Navigators look for signs such as land nesting birds and disrupted ocean swells that help to identify an expanded area for targeted landfall. The notion of expanding islands refers both to this navigational practice as well as the dynamic of islands and islanders expanding outwards into new physical, cultural, intellectual spaces. The final roundtable will bring together the conference's special visiting speakers to offer their observations over the last few days and thoughts on what lies ahead beyond the horizon for an expanded Oceanic Ethnic Studies. And if you were here during the short transition period, we had a little opportunity to see a recent video that Tai Sanga is producing for the Kamehameha School Song Contest, which will be aired across the state. And the theme there is looking at the Hokulea's voyages and the ways in which they've created new ways of thinking. This whole navigational practice that in many ways is the metaphor we're using for this conference with our star compass, which, as Vince was talking about yesterday, is, again, a mistranslation of the notion of this compass. But nonetheless, it is useful for getting us to think of new ways of understanding, of relating, of connecting between islanders and beyond. And as a department that has its roots here in community struggles, nicely illustrated in the video of Pete Thompson, and also in memory of his good work, and the ways that we're looking forward. The question is, what do you see lying ahead for whether it's quote-unquote Oceanic Ethnic Studies, or in general the kinds of projects that you're all involved with coalition building, with activism, with scholarship, with sovereignty struggles, and so forth and so on. And not only here, but just in general, what are the coalitions that we should be looking towards forming based on your own practice and what we've seen and heard here? So that's the general set of questions to think on, and really we'll just kind of go down the line and have you share some final thoughts on this as a way of just wrapping up the conference.